And that's it. So I'll let Ron.
Hey everyone, come on,
thing.
why don't we just sort of
Where Ellen and Eric?
gather like in a little circle here.
They're out of town.
You can read it later.
Alec, where's the chapter?
I will have you read
I'm recording for them.
We would do it outside, but it was starting to drizzle. So, no, y'all get in a little circle. It's not a family unit here, right? Yeah. So I was thinking about this opportunity to do this. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. The opportunity to do this dedication and to be able to appreciate the beauty of nature and the fact that these flowers have been planted in memory and what they symbolize. I was thinking about really the power of nature in our tradition and the way it finds voice in so many different passages. An appreciation of the power of nature to really evoke sentiment, to evoke memory, and to evoke really our greatest spiritual sense. So, just a few of the examples that might be familiar. We find in Psalm 23, which is probably one of the most well-known psalms, in lush meadows, God, you let me lie down, you lead me beside tranquil waters. There's the Psalm 121, where we lift our eyes up to the mountains to find a source of help from God. In Ecclesiastes, the book of wisdom literature, we are reminded that there is a season set for everything, and a time for every experience, and a time for planting, a time for uprooting what has been planted. We know that those familiar words of Eli, Eli, Shaloi Gamer Le'olam, right? My God, I pray these things never end. Some may remember this song, right? The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, right? The prayer of the heart. All these, again, these nature images which are uttered and offered at times when we are either vulnerable or in need of some sort of source of strength and support that we can often find in our tradition. And then there's this beautiful passage which we often include at times of remembrance, where the words are in the rising of the sun and it's going down, and in the blueness of the sky, and in the chill of winter, in the blowing of the wind, and in the opening of buds, and in the rebirth of spring, at all of these moments that are just natural or beautiful. All of those moments are a time of remembrance. So Jewish tradition really has, in so many, and those are just a handful, in so many instances we find these passages which speak to exactly what we are gathered here today to do. And that is just to remember and to allow the beauty of nature to evoke that memory. There's this passage. In a garden, I once heard a song or an ancient blessing, and above the dark trees, a window is always lit, in memory of the face that looked out of it. And the face, too, was in memory of another lit window. There's this beautiful chain of tradition that is evoked in that poem, right? The idea that look at this beautiful garden in just a moment as we plant these memorial stakes, if you will. And not the most beautiful of days, but that's part of the power of nature as well. And may the vision of the flowers that bloom in the spring be a reminder of really the memory of loved ones which are surrounding us. So, Jason, you were going to share some things?
Yeah, I did a little something. I want to thank Rabbi Siegel for being here in the middle of Passover and helping us with this little service, if you want to call it a service. I also really want to thank Kathy and my dear friends, the Chastains. They couldn't be here today. Eric and Ellen are not Jewish, but they fell in love with the Daffodil Project, which has a mission of remembering the 1.5 million children who died during the Holocaust by planting 1.5 million daffodils around the globe. And they came up with the idea of honoring Kathy and my fathers with some daffodils here at Temple Sinai. And when we told them that this weekend was one where a lot of folks could be in town, they told us that they were going to be out of town. And so we said, oh wait, we'll do it some other time. And very much in keeping with the type of people they are, they said, no, no way, this is about your family, and so they insisted that we do it now, but I promised them, of course, we will come back sometime and see the daffodils when they're in full bloom. Now, I want to tell you, right now, they look like sticks of green with nothing yellow on them. I wish you all could have been, I know, Julie, I think you guys were, I'm not sure if they were fully in bloom then or not, I'm trying to remember. Literally 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they were spectacular. It was incredibly gorgeous to see them, and I guess there's about a month or so a year where the yellow and off the sunlight in spring is incredibly beautiful. And I was thinking about that a little bit, and I realized it's a terrible way to remember Bob and Kenny, because they bloom for a little while and then they're not. And these are two men who were incredibly sunny at all times, incredibly positive at all times. And so in some respects, I was like, wait, a daffodil that goes away, this is not the way to remember them. But then I hit upon something else. I had all this stuff written down, I'm not reading it because I remember it. So Chastain's got 200 daffodils. And as you'll see, the area is pretty packed with them. There are only room for about 160 or 170 to be planted. So what do you do with the extra ones? You know what you do, you give them to Jason and Kathy to plant. And so in our front yard,
And Gail has some.
and you have some also? Yeah. I think Eric and Ellen took some as well. There were lots of extras, it was great. In our front driveway, literally the first thing you see when you pull in the driveway, there's a little area where I planted about 12 or 15 daffodils. And when they were blooming, every single day when I drove in, I would see them, and it made me think of Kenny and Bob. Literally every single day. I'm not kidding with you. And I notice now that they're not blooming, I still see them, like you can't avoid them. And it really is a beautiful, wonderful thing that every day I'm reminded of these two men who were such an important part of my life and such a great influence. And I would say any of you who have a house, a home, where you could do this, go home, buy a few first of all, they're incredibly gorgeous and they're incredibly hardy, they're really easy. I have no green thumb at all, and all of mine bloomed. Go plant a few daffodils, and I guarantee when you see them, it'll make you think of the loved ones that we're honoring here today. So,
Thinking about that as well, I hadn't thought of it until you said it, but the fact that they bloom for a bit, but then the blooms are gone, in some ways, that's for all of us who have lost a parent.
yeah, it's fitting.
It's like the power of memory. Well, not only about life in general, that people that we love are with us for a little bit of time and then sadly gone, but it's also indicative, I think, of memory. Like there are times when it's really, really just so raw and compelling and overwhelming, and then other days when it subsides and isn't as much. The presence is always there, but you know what I mean. Its intensity waxes and wanes, I think, and perhaps there's a sense of that there. The other thing I was thinking about daffodils is that unlike most flowers in which we wait until the weather is a little bit nicer to plant them, daffodil bulbs are planted, back in the fall, before the winter. And in that regard, they're planted, you could say, with a sense of hopefulness. You plant them hoping that after a winter and after frost hits the ground and after the ground hardens, that these blossoms will emerge. And that sense of hope also, I think, is a way of giving honor to the way in which memory is something that we can continue to know will always be part of our lives, and that the presence, even if people are no longer physically present, the presence and the spirit of people that we love also is something that can continue to remain with us in years to come. So I found a poem that I thought we could take a look at. Pass one of those around. So The poem on the backside, How to Be Remembered, is just for your own enjoyment. I found it to be quite powerful. We're not going to look at that one. But there's one by John O'Donoghue, an Irish poet. This poem for a father struck me as to be quite lovely. The longer we live, the more of your presence we find laid down, weave upon weave within our lives. The quiet constancy of your gentleness drew no attention to itself, yet filled our home with a climate of kindness where each mind felt free to seek its own direction. As the fields of distance opened inside childhood, your presence was a sheltering tree where our fledgling hearts could rest. The earth seemed to trust your hands as they tilled the soil, put in the seed, gathered together the lonely stones. Something in you loved to inquire in the neighborhood of air, searching its transparent rooms for the fallen glances of God. The warmth and wonder of your prayer opened our eyes to glimpse the subtle ones who are eternally there. Whenever, silently in off moments, the beauty of the whole thing overcame you, you would gaze quietly out upon us, the look from your eyes like a kiss alighting on skin. There are many things we could have said, but words never wanted to name them. And perhaps a world that is quietly sensed across the air in another's heart becomes the inner companion to one's own unknown. Source of life, these words of prayer with which we'll conclude. Source of life, divine providence, one who brings forth crocuses and daffodils. Praise to you for blessing the earth with beauty. Gathered on this afternoon, we ask God that you renew us with the beauty of flowing water, with blooming flowers, with singing birds, with the light of spring. May we take notice of earth's blessings that surround us, and may our eyes remain open to new life which peeks out from the soil, always reminding us that unseen beauty, the beauty of memory, await us in every season, at each and every moment.
Amen. So, here, Kath. Actually, please stop it. Let's go outside now. Look at these stalks that used to have beautiful flowers on them. And I sort of thought I was going to have each of the grandkids help plant this thing, but it's kind of wet. And so, is it okay if I just have Drew go do it and get his shoes wet? Yeah, good. Let's go do that. So we'll just.
And it was a beautiful day the day they were planted.
It was actually.
It was.